The speaker is Massimo Paris, who was born in Rome, Italy, the Rome, and now residing in Broomall, Pennsylvania, and he's dedicated over 3 decades to studying and researching the Shroud. He personally venerated the Shroud at the public exposition in 2000. He lectures on the Shroud, the Tilma of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and Eucharistic miracles, and he explores their artistic symbolism and theology. He has a background in medicine and has also studied archaeology, art history, and languages as a certified tour guide. His passion extends to theology, philosophy, and metaphysics, which he shares through profound teachings, reflections, and meditations. Let's welcome Massimo Paris.
Thank you. Again, it's an honor to present in front of you. It's an honor to have given this presentation on Friday at 3 p.m., the time when Christ was died on the cross. And I was also saying that I think I need to recognize a person without whom I would not be present here today. Unfortunately, I've been suffering from severe treatment-resistant depression for 53 years. I started at 17. I'm 70 now. And last weekend, I got a flare of hopelessness. I didn't want to come. And if I had not been for the love and persistence of my wife, Carol, who tried very gently, very persistently to pray with me and to get over my hopelessness, I would not be here. So I think, thank you very much. So, okay, as you can see, only the title takes 3 minutes to read. So, the Calvary, the Tomb of Christ, and the Basilica, of Holy Sepulcher, 2,000 years, history, archaeology, art, and witnesses' accounts. So, what you see behind me on both sides, that is the main entrance of the Basilica of Holy Sepulcher, and actually it is the south entrance. Okay, if you had the drone, you can start with the camera. You start flying the drone upward. Once the drone passes that balcony there, you would see that you see those 2 domes. Okay, the big dome is on top of what is called the rotunda, with the edicule that contains practically shelters the tomb of Christ. Whereas inside the Basilica of Holy Sepulcher, a little bit further to the still inside the building, but a little bit further to the east, there is also the rock of Calvary. That is that one. That is part of the rock. That is at the lower level. There's also at an upper level. Those structures were built during the Middle Ages, especially by the Crusaders. So I shall interject also 2 or 3 theological reflections. The rock of Calvary, we shall see later, practically was an outcrop of rock in a quarry of stone that was not used because it was considered to be of lower quality. So both the Calvary and the tomb were the 2 extremities of a quarry of stone, but I'll get there more. So the rock of Calvary was not used with a lower quality. So what brought me to my mind the fact that in the Psalm 118, verses 22, it is said the stone that the builder rejected has become the cornerstone. Okay? And that is not only in the Psalm, it is also in the 3 synoptic Gospels. It is in the Acts, it is in the letter of St. Paul to the Romans, and it is also in the first letter of Peter. So it's widely. The 2 domes, you can see, are a very typical landmark in the panorama of Jerusalem. Even from an aerial view, you can see them. The larger dome is further to the west. The smaller dome is further to the east. Oh, sorry. Okay. Now, I would like to explain a little bit how I arrived to this presentation here. What triggered my interest? Practically, having been born in Rome and raised in Rome I was a tour guide, so I've been always immersed almost since my birth in art, archaeology, history. But I was accustomed to see, of course, the representation of the resurrection of Jesus. But, for example, like these ones, that's very, very well known by the Shroud scholars. On the left-hand side, there is the Pray manuscript there, and on the right-hand side, that is the Ingeborg Psalter that was practically miniature in the same period. But the lower part where there is the women that go to the tomb to prepare the body of Christ is a little bit confused, but there it's more clear that the women are there and the angel is sitting on a sarcophagus. You see the sarcophagus there? So I never paid too much attention, especially in the Renaissance art. There were a lot of resurrection scenes that where Christ was resurrected from a sarcophagus. This is Piero della Francesca. This is Mantegna, Andrea Mantegna. This is Andrea Mantegna. This is Raphael. This is Lucas Cranach. So this is especially Renaissance painting. As I said, I didn't pay too much attention, but I was telling myself, I have serious doubts that Christ resurrected from a sarcophagus. Probably he was buried in a tomb rather than a sarcophagus. In sculpture, the situation didn't change too much. This is from the Cathedral of Worms, Christ again resurrected from a sarcophagus. This is Andrea della Robbia, 16th century, also Christ resurrected from a sarcophagus. Okay, but then when there were representation of Christ, the tomb of Christ, often you would find that the tomb had an entrance that was quite large, as you can see. That is, for example, the Ottonian Bamberg Apocalypse from the 11th century. Let's move forward to the modern times. Even in movies, the entrance to the tomb seems the normal, like there. And this is a drawing that was given by a friend of mine for a slide. You see that a very looks like a normal entrance. What had always cracked my mind? Why with normal entrances like those, or it's so in the former, why when Peter and John arrived at the tomb, John arrives first but didn't enter, and then Peter entered and then John stooped down? Why did he have to stoop down? That always cracked my mind. And finally, for example, this is, even in archaeology, I've been given this slide, this is a tomb in Jerusalem. The entrance there is taller because you see there is like a step. So there are some steps that go down. So but the entrance is kind of normal there too. Why the heck? I kept asking this question. And finally, around a little bit before 2015, I purchased this book, Roll Back the Stone, Death and Burial in the World of Jesus, by Byron McCain. So there at page 33, I should read it. I know it's a little bit long, but in order to explain this whole situation. Entry into this tomb, a tomb that was considered a typical tomb of the period, began with an external forecourt, one wall of which contained a small entryway, approximately half a meter by half a meter, roughly 2 feet by 2 feet, okay? That is a little bit more, but the typical stone that covered the entrance to a Jewish tomb in early Roman Palestine was thus nearly square or slightly rectangular in shape. It is actually quite rare for these stones to be round, or to be situated in such a way as to be rolled away from the entrance to the tomb. In most cases, the stone would have to be pulled or dragged, not rolled from the entrance. Clear for everybody? That for me was a paradigm shift. Whoa, accustomed to all those artistic representation. So it triggered my curiosity, I started investigating, and I found this picture. So that is an entrance that is quite square, or very slightly rectangular. That is a square blocking stone that looks more like a cork in a champagne bottle, because there was actually a part that was smaller that would fit into the entrance, and the other one, the larger part, was blocking the stone to either to enter completely or in case it was necessary to open it. So that one, so it is worth investigating. So through a friend of mine, I was recommended to get the works of this gentleman. This was Father Virgilio Corbo. He was a Franciscan. Maybe you don't say that is the cloak of the Franciscans. But he was also an archaeologist. From 1963 until 1980, he led a team of archaeologists who excavated in the Basilica of Holy Sepulcher for 17 years. But actually, they started in 1960, but he was appointed leader of the group, of the team, in 1963. So for 17 years, he daily supervised the excavations. And then in 1980, from 1980 until 1981-82, he collected the results of the works and published in three volumes that I was able to purchase. I'm not getting to tell the story, but if you ask me, it was a funny story how I was able to do it. It's an adventure to get the volumes of Father Corbo. So one of the main things that Father Corbo and the team found out was the following. Sorry. Okay, this one. Any idea what that was? You, Jorge, tú lo sabes. Any idea what that was? That was a floor of the quarry of stones. Those were stones that were already ready to be cut and used, but for some reason were not finally cut and removed. But and besides that, this is a second picture of another section of the quarry. You see there those steps. This is modern, but you see at the bottom those steps there. Those are the remains of the quarry. And this is even more, same thing. So practically, they found out there was the Basilica of Holy Sepulcher was built in an area where there was a big quarry of stones that was in use from the 7th century BC until the 1st century BC. And then for the 1st century BC, the extraction of stones were stopped, and the bottom of the quarry was filled with dirt. And the bottom of the quarry was transformed into a garden, an orchard, where they cultivated grapes, olive trees, and fig trees. In case you had an idea, the quarry was quite large. That white line is the perimeter of the Basilica, the present-day Basilica. The yellow is the perimeter of the quarry. At the time, it had a maximum length of about 600 feet and a maximum width at about 450 feet. That white circle there, that was where the tomb was hewn in the rock, and that was the rock of Calvary. So practically, the tomb and the Calvary and the tomb were at two extremities of the quarry. The Calvary at the eastern edge, the tomb at the western edge of the quarry. Another little reflection, if you notice, the tomb and the Calvary are almost at the same level. So if you consider a line of that kind, it forms like an a west-east or east-west line that we can consider like a patibulum. And then if you consider the north-south axis, gives us the symbol of the cross, but just as a reflection. So at that point, what came next? So what kind of tomb was the tomb of Christ? And I started investigating and find out that practically the primary three types of tombs at the time of Christ were three. There were shaft tombs, loculus tombs, and arcosolium tombs. The shaft tomb is the kind of tomb that you find when we have big cemeteries. They dig a shaft, they place the body, usually they cover it with a slab, and then they fill the shaft with dirt. Okay? The loculus is the Latin word. Loculus singular, loculi, or actually loculi, it's a Latin, no, it's the American pronunciation. Loculi. In Hebrew is koch singular, kohim plural. A kohim tomb with one or two or three loculi, the loculi or the kohim were shafts that, unlike in the Roman catacomb, the Christian catacombs, where the loculi were parallel to the corridors of the catacombs, the kohim were perpendicular to the wall of the tomb. And then the arcosolium, singular arcosolia, plural tombs. I'll give you an example of, this was a shaft tomb. See, they would dig like a pit. That goes down. That kid is in the pit. They would either the person was buried at the bottom, covered with a slab, and then the shaft would be filled with dirt, or they would dig a further cavity there, place the body, cover the entrance to the cavity with the body with a stone, and then fill with dirt. The second two kind of tomb, only 5% of the tomb of Second Temple period, from 1st century BC until 70 AD, when Titus conquered Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, raised practice, are only 5% of the tombs. The second type of tomb are the kohim tomb, loculi tomb or kohim tomb. These are, you see there are three kohim, or three loculi. The dead person would be introduced into the loculus, onto the koch, which is the singular, head first, wrapped in a shroud, and then the loculus or koch would be covered with a stone. So far, so good. Both tombs, both the shaft tomb and the kohim tomb, didn't fit the description of the gospel. But in the gospel, especially in John, in the chapter 20 of John, when Mary was there weeping, suppose she stooped down her too, and saw two angels, one sitting where at the feet of where Christ had been placed, and one sitting where the head of Christ had been placed. So, based on this description, of course, could be a loculus. Otherwise, it could be an angel fitting at the feet, but an angel inside the loculus would have been very difficult. Those kohim could have a depth of between 6 feet or up to 6 feet 8. So the only possibility for the kind of tomb the tomb of Christ was the arcosolium tomb, which is this kind of. So the arcosolium, because you see there is an arch, and that was the stone bench on which usually the body was placed. Based on the description of the Patriarch of Jerusalem, Photius, who visited Jerusalem in 885, the niche in the tomb of Christ was not arched, but was rectangular. Okay, so just to make clear. Okay, so this is a model that I found on the website of National Geographic, which shows practically gives an idea of the quarry. You see, and that was the tomb on the west edge of the wall, on the west wall of the tomb, and that was the promontory of Calvary. What is not shown here? This is not. So I have other images that are much more descriptive. Here, that just seems a quarry. Doesn't give you the idea of the orchard. We get there. This is a plan of Jerusalem at the time of Christ. So you see there, so that was the western city wall. That was the quarry. On the eastern edge, there was the Calvary. On the western edge, the tomb. Eastern edge, the Calvary, the tomb. So another interesting theological reflection. In the letter of St. Paul to the Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 12, St. Paul says, "So Jesus also suffered outside of the gate in order to sanctify the people through his own blood." Well, so that was outside the town, but what is the gate? You see that there was a gate there. There was also Gennath gate. See there, the Gennath gate? The Gennath gate in Hebrew meant the gate of the garden. So evidently took the name from the fact that in the quarry had been transformed into an orchard in the 1st century AD. Josephus, the Jewish historian Josephus, talking about that Gennath gate, says, "The second wall took its beginning from that gate which they called Gennath." The second wall, according to Josephus, was that one. That one. That was the second wall. Take its beginning from the gate which they call Gennath, which belonged to the first wall, meaning the gate belonged to the first wall. The first wall was that one. And that was the Gennath gate. They belonged to the first wall. Then they added the second wall. It only encompassed the northern quarter city and reached as far as the tower, the fortress Antonia. So this is Josephus, the Jewish wars. So the second wall started from the gate, and then it corresponded with the Antonia fortress. And then in the Gospel, it said, many of the Jews read this title when Christ was crucified, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city. It was outside the town, but near the city. That is John 19:20. Sorry. It's like that. This is a picture of the Jewish archaeologist Naaman Avigad. He excavated in the 1970s in an area inside the old city of Jerusalem, and he found this. So these are modern structures, but you see that was the ancient wall of Jerusalem. That also, you see that opening between the two arrows? He identified that opening as the Gennath gate, and he was right. This is the Hebrew. Sorry, strike that. The Greek architect, Haris Karlakidis. He has made some phenomenal computer reconstruction of the area, which I'll show you some examples. This is a reconstruction of Jerusalem as seen from the Mount of Olives, from the west. Okay? So that is, from the east. That is the eastern wall of Jerusalem. That is the temple. That is the western wall. So eastern wall, western wall. That is the quarry with the Calvary and the tomb. Okay? Now let's zoom in. Let's move forward. Okay. So that was the Calvary. Of course, this is a computer reconstruction. The rock was much more rough, not that as polished as here. It seemed to have levigated the holes. So that was the Calvary. That was the bottom of the quarry. That was the tomb of Jesus, that one. That was the tomb of Jesus. Oh, sorry. Same. Okay. So this is a further view from looking westward. That is the tomb. That is the Golgotha. The tomb, the Golgotha. Okay. So this is the tomb of Jesus seen from the bottom of the quarry. Okay. Now, in the Gospel of Mark, if I remember correctly, chapter 16, he said, when the women went to the... Actually, let me go back. When the women went to on Sunday, went to the tomb to anoint the body of Christ, they were discussing how to remove the stone. But then they looked up, and they saw the stone had been removed. That explained they were evidently at the bottom, working somehow at the bottom of the quarry, looked up. The tomb was somehow on the wall, but a little bit higher than... To confirm archaeologically what I'm saying, this is a cross-section of Basilica, Holy Sepulcher. That is the level, the ground level, so the level at which the tomb was. See there? That is the ground level. But that is the bottom of the quarry. See? The bottom of the quarry was there. So the quarry was lower than the level of where the tomb was. And that explains and justifies why the women looked up, and so the stone had been removed. This is, again, a reconstruction by Scarlakidis, according to also what Byron McCain said in his book, Roll Back the Stone. The entrance is square, and the stone is square also. This is Shimon Gibson. Shimon Gibson is an archaeologist of English origin, but he has excavated extensively in Israel. And he has written this book, The Final Days of Jesus, the Archaeological Evidence. From that book, we have this drawing, I'm sure made by Gibson, that shows a reconstruction of how the tomb was. So there was only one burial chamber. There was somehow, if you want, an open vestibule. Was not a closed vestibule. There was a second chamber before the burial chamber. There was an open vestibule. And there was a square entrance and a square blocking stone. This is Amos Kloner. Amos Kloner was an Israeli archaeologist who, born in 1940, died in 2019. He taught also, besides being an archaeologist, he also taught at the Jewish University of Jerusalem. He wrote this following article. See, Amos Kloner. Did a rolling stone close Jesus' tomb? Now, I'm reading the blue. Let me read it once. So, most of the 98% of the Jewish tomb from this period, called the Second Temple period, between parentheses, circa 1st century BCE to 70 CE, were closed with square blocking stones. Of the more than 900 burial caves or burial tombs from the Second Temple period found in and around Jerusalem, only 4 are known to have used round, between parentheses, disc-shaped blocking stones. So this somehow confirmed that what Byron McCain has said, that Shimon Gibson. So actually, it's not even 98%. It's more than 98%. 4 out of 900. Is 99.5.6%. So it's an enormous percentage of stones that were blocked with square blocking stones. I found even further archaeological evidence This is another tomb with that kind of champagne cork shape. Those stones actually work more like a plug than as a blocking stone. Actually, they were rolled so the smaller, the thinner part would fit into the entrance, and the flange, the larger part would prevent that from remaining stuck there.
So the roll or the slide?
I'm getting there. Okay, so this is the same slide I showed earlier, but a lot of these stones, there is a little bit, you see that side there was kind of rounded. So to help actually they would be rolled but forward, not rolled sideways. Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Pardon? But they brought it kind of close to the entrance. They would roll, pivoted. Yes, thank you.
Roll the block and then
yes, pivoted, rolling forward. This is a reconstruction by the National Geographic, but to lose the attachment, the affection for the Rolling Stones is an idea hard to die. So you can see that. Sorry. Okay. Back. This is back to the reconstruction of Scarlachidis. So this is a longitudinal section of the tomb of Christ. And this also fits, for example, in Mark 16:5, and the women entering the tomb, they saw a young man, of course an angel, on the right side dressed in a white robe, and they were amazed. So if you enter there, you have someone sitting on the niche on the right side. And in John 20:12, it is said that, and she, Mary, saw the two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet. And by the way, the entrance, so the niche was hewn on the north side of the tomb. The entrance was east. That explains why when Easter Sunday, we probably end of March, maybe beginning of April, spring, the sun was just rising in the morning when Peter and John arrived there. That explains why John, stooping down, was able to see with the light that was still not too high. But there, you see, Scarlachidis made the upper edge of the entrance was higher than the bottom of the niche. So somehow it was possible to see the burial linen lying there, and the Sudan Oviedo rolled in a corner. Still, so this is a kind of a bird's eye view. The Calvary there, that is the crater formed by, according to Matthew, because of the earthquake that occurred when Christ died. And here, the bank of stone where the tomb had been hewn has been cut to see better the tomb. Okay, so this is a zooming close. So this is a closing. So that is the stone bench on the north side of the entrance. There was several pilgrims who visited the tomb said there was only one stone bench. The tomb of Christ was clearly of Joseph of Arimathea, was clearly a tomb that had been started to be hewn, had not been completed. So there was the entrance. There was the entrance. This is what you would see if you would look outside the tomb from inside. You see the Calvary in front with the crosses. Here we end with the reconstructions of Scarlachidis. By the way, that is the crater form. We shall see later, the crack that was caused by the earthquake that is still visible nowadays. This is the plan of Jerusalem after Herod Agrippa in 44 AD built the so-called Third Wall. The third wall was the blue one. At that point, including the quarry inside the town. This is a statue of Titus, the son of Vespasian, who in the year 70 besieged Jerusalem, conquered Jerusalem, raised the temple to, raised the temple to the ground, and the rest is history. Now also that it was history. So, and this is the honorary arch of Titus in Rome. I lived 20 minutes from there. So when I went to high school, 6 days a week would pass by there. I would see that arch 6 times going a week, 6 times a week coming back. If you pass through the arch, behind that arch going there, there is the Roman Forum. But if you pass through the arch, you look on the right, on the left-hand side, inside the arch, you see this. That is the triumphal procession of when the legions of Titus came back to Rome, carrying the menorah as part of the booty. Even a better vision, this one, very clear, that was the menorah that they took back to Rome. Now from, that is 70. Move forward 65 years. This is a bust of the Emperor Hadrian. Hadrian was emperor between 117 until 138. During his kingdom, there was the rebellion of Bar Kokhba. He had his his general, Severus, he crushed the rebellion brutally. But at that point, the former was a marble bust, this is a bronze bust. Hadrian gave order to his architects to build 2 containing walls. So at the bottom you see the quarry with the Calvary on the eastern edge, the tomb on the western edge. The upper part, Hadrian gave order to build 2 containing walls, one north, one south, but both going east to west or west to east or east to west. That containing walls were filled with dirt, and they form a platform. And on top of the platform, he had the temple built. And some pilgrims, some people, like for example Saint Jerome, said that actually part of the Calvary was still protruding outside the platform, and they placed a statue of Venus, actually Aphrodite, but Aphrodite is the Greek name of Venus, so Venus for the Romans, Aphrodite for the Greeks. So he wanted to delete completely from the mind of the Christians and the people in the area the memory of the tomb and the Calvary of Christ. He did exactly the opposite. The Christians for generations transmitted that the tomb and the Calvary were under the basement, the platform on top of which there was the temple that Hadrian had ordered to be built. To show the devotion that went on for. Okay. This is a drawing of made with charcoal of a Roman ship that was used to carry freight, so goods. And at the bottom there is Domine ivimus, oh Lord, we went. Probably those were pilgrims that went to Jerusalem using probably a ride on one of these. Has been found, has been dated to the 2nd century AD. So practically, probably before Hadrian, either before Hadrian built those structures, or when the structures were in the process of being built, they drew that. Okay. When the Romans founded a new town or a new Roman camp, that was called a castrum, they usually traced the 2 main streets, a street north-south and a street east-west or west-east. The street north-south was called the Cardo. The street east-west, west-east was called the Decumanus. And by the way, when the 2 roads were defined, the area was divided in 4 sections, were called quarters. So you get where the name came from. So this is a vision, a model from practically Hadrian, besides ordering that, he rebuilt Jerusalem, but he called it Aelia Capitolina. His name was Aelius Adrianus, so he gave part of his name to the new town. And so that was the Cardo Maximus. This is looking from north, usually the north at the top. Here north is at the bottom. Looking from north towards south. That was the temple. Okay, this is a plan now. Plan as regular should be regular oriented. That is north. That is the Cardo Maximus. That is the Decumanus. That is the area where there was the temple of Aphrodite, the statue of Aphrodite, and so on. Now, that is the area of the structure of the temple, where the platform top. That is, you see that the part of the Cardo, you see excavated, where those dots on both sides. That was the area excavated by Naaman Navigat, the Jewish archaeologist who found the Gennat Gate. He found the Gennat Gate under that area that in red. Okay? Sorry. Okay. These are remains of the structure built by Hadrian. You see, the blocks were kind of massive. Those there where the steps would lead up to the platform where there was a temple. See there? Now, from 135, let's move forward almost 200 years, at least one until 326. This is a gigantic bronze statue of Constantine the Great. Constantine the Great was the emperor who defeated Maxentius at the Battle of Milvian Bridge. In 313 promulgated the Edict of Milan, giving freedom of cult to the Christians. He summoned the Council of Nicaea. This year is the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea in 325. Which creed we pray at Mass after the homily. And he's also the one who moved the capital from Rome to Istanbul, that at the time got the name of Constantinople because of him.
What museum is that?
Pardon?
The museum.
That's Rome.
Okay, it's in Rome.
I don't remember what museum because I was a tour guide. I've not been visiting, so that is in the capital. On the Capitol Hill. That is the remains of gigantic statue. That is the remain of an arm of Constantine. The reconstruction of the gigantic statue. Reconstruction of the statue. That is the original head. That is the original arm. One of the two arms of the statue. So around 326, 327, Saint Helena, the mother of Constantine, went to Jerusalem, was told by the bishop Macarius that under that platform there was the Calvary, there was the tomb. She started digging, of course not by herself, she told slaves or whatever to dig, and she found the cross. Then of course told the authorization to demolish the whole temple could come only from Constantine. Constantine gave the authorization. This is what you see is a reconstruction of what Constantine ordered to be built. He ordered the whole temple of Hadrian to be razed to the ground. Bless you. On top of where the tomb was, he ordered the construction of the rotunda of the Anastasis. That is that one. And at the center, at the bottom, there was the edicule that contained the tomb. Then there was a triportico open courtyard where the Calvary was in the open air. And then there was this huge basilica with 5 naves, a big central nave and 2 side naves on each side. This is a reconstruction of the edicule at the time. The edicule was the structure that contained the tomb. So this is a model of how the structure was. That was the rotunda of the Anastasis. That was the open triportico courtyard with the Rock of Golgotha, and that was the Basilica of the Martyrium. This is a bird's eye view, so you see that the dome of the Anastasis, that is it's not exactly the same because that was destroyed, but anyway, it's like the big blue dome that we see at the beginning. That was at the top of the rotunda. You see there, inside there was the edicule. The triportico, the Rock of Calvary. This is a model that has been found in Narbonne, France. Is a sculpture made by, according to the indication, some anonymous pilgrim that represent how the edicule was at the time. It has been dated more or less to the end of the 4th century, beginning of the 5th century. That is the edicule seen from the east. See there, the entrance was on the east. Here there were 4 columns, 1 and 2 on each side, 1 or 2 columns on each side. That was the entrance, and then this was the model. The model seen from the west. There were 5 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here there was the wall probably has been broken. That was the stone bench where the body of Christ had been laid. Comparing with the edicule nowadays, it's mind-boggling. If we compare the angle of the stone bench inside the model of Narbonne, that is that one, with the angle of inside the edicule nowadays, is also matched perfectly. You see there? This is the tomb of Saint Pudenziana in Rome. There is Christ, and it's a mosaic. There is the Christ on a throne. Behind him, there is the Rock of Calvary. That is very likely a a big golden cross that Theodosius II had ordered to be built on top of Calvary. But if we focus, zoom in, so that very likely, you see that building with the curved dome, very likely was the rotunda of the Anastasis with the dome, and that was the Basilica of the Martyrium. There. This is the Madaba map. Robert says, I know it. This practically was a floor mosaic that was found in Madaba in Jordan that shows, you see up there, it's Agia, Polis, Jerusa, so the holy town of Jerusalem. The name of Jerusalem is cut, but that is, you see that is the Cardo Maximus. And there too. But you see that structure there, that one, if I flip the mosaics upside down, you have that. Sorry. Yeah, you have that. You see there are 1, 2, 3 steps, 1, 2, 3 doors, a gable roof, and then the dome of the Rotunda de Anastasis. I'll compare with the model. A few steps, 3 entrances, the gable door, the dome of the Rotunda de Anastasis. Back to you see, the steps, the 3 entrances, the gable door, the dome of the, thank you. 5 minutes left, I'll try to accelerate. So, move forward. So this is like the development of the tomb from the time when Christ was placed in the tomb, it was hewn in the rock. Here, Constantine ordered to remove completely all the rock around, left only that circular structure, then place those 5 columns around that are visible on the Narbonne model. And that is the modern edicule was built by the Greek architect Nikolaos Komnenos after a fire in 1808, he rebuilt in 1810. These are the development of the edicule during the centuries. That was the time of Constantine, 4th century. 11th century. In 614, the armies of Khosrow, the Emperor Khosrow, conquered Jerusalem, set the Basilica of Holy Sepulcher on fire. But in 1009, the Caliph Al-Hakim, the Egyptian Caliph, ordered his soldiers to raise the whole structure to the ground. They did it. Actually, it is said that even the edicule, they destroyed the roof, but there were so many debris. The more they destroyed, the more debris accumulated. They didn't have trucks and bulldozers to remove the debris. So probably that saved the. Okay, so. I forgot. Sorry, I forgot. Forgot one thing. Okay, so the Crusaders, the Byzantine Crusaders rebuilt it. Then in the 16th century, in 1555, under Bonifacio Ragusa, who was a Franciscan, the whole edicule was completely rebuilt from the ground. And then what they see the edicule that we have today, that was rebuilt in 1810. I was going to talk about the Calvary, you don't have too much time, so that is how it is now. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
How about Golgotha?
That is the Golgotha. That is the Golgotha. So that is how it's visible today. That is the crack of the earthquake. That is at the upper floor. It's visible also on the lower floor, and there is a window through which you can see the crack at the lower floor, the lower level. That is looking north from south. That is the rock of Golgotha or Calvary within the structure built by the Crusaders. That is an altar was built by Nikolaos Komnenos, the architect, the Greek architect, in 1810 after the fire of 1808. He, out of respect, decided to build the holy altar 40 centimeters, a foot and 4 inches further west than the actual place of the crucifixion. But then in 1986, a group of Greek archaeologists led by Professor Mitropoulos, Professor Lavas and Dr. Mitropoulos, they excavated there. They placed slabs of marble. They removed slabs of marbles. They found there was a cavity in which the cross was actually fixed into the rock. They found a ring of stone that actually in which the cross was fixed and prevented the cross from falling. Sorry. That is the ring of stone. Now, those are the drawings by Lavas and Komnenos. So that was the ring of stone. That was the crack. That was they found engraved on the rock a small cross. That one. That was this one. You see the small cross? Well, if I show you the drawing first and then move back, maybe it's more visible. See the cross? It looks like to have like a tennis racket. Yeah. I'm wrapping that super quickly. So this is the tomb. How if you see nowadays, that is those iron girders were placed by the British in 1947 before leaving Israel. But then in 2016. In 2016, there was an extreme super emergency to need to do some works of renovation. It was decided to be done. They removed, so that is how you see from the top the slab that was placed there in 1555. It was necessary to open it. The Greek Orthodox allowed to do it only for 60 hours. So it was open, and they found that under that, there was that. So that was a slab. So imagine that is the rock of the tomb at the time of Christ. So that is the rock of the time of Christ. That slab on top of it was a slab that's been placed by the Crusaders, but was broken. For some reason it was broken. So there was the tomb of Christ, the slab on top of it, So this is like a picture on top. So practically, I'm wrapping up here. I've no doubt in mind that white stone is the stone where Christ was laid to rest, wrapped in the shroud, and within which, on that rock, it took place the most important event in the history of mankind, that was the resurrection of Christ. Thank you very much for your attention. If you want to ask questions, I'll go outside. Okay.